Whew. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Formula One Gridlock podcast. My name, of course, is Nathan Charles, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Chase Bozung. Chase, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well. We are recording this podcast a little bit later. I did not have a chance to watch the race live, unfortunately, so I had to catch up watching it afterwards. So we are recording this the Tuesday, I believe, Tuesday evening after the race on Sunday, but that is okay because it doesn't matter. So, Chase, let's just get into the rundown and start talking about this race. We had the Formula One Pirelli Gran Premio de España 2022 race results. Taking first, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Second place, his teammate, Sergio Perez. That's a very, very, very good weekend from Red Bull. They will be very happy with it. Sergio Perez also gets fastest lap point, so he scores 19 instead of the typical 18. Third place, the ever-consistent this season, George Russell in the Mercedes. Fourth place, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, splitting the Mercedes. As in fifth place is George's teammate, Lewis Hamilton, scoring, I think, his best finish so far this season. Fifth place for Lewis. Sixth place, Valtteri Bottas in the first Alfa Romeo. Seventh place, Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. Eighth place, Lando Norris in the McLaren. Ninth place, Fernando Alonso in the second Alpine. Alpine will take that weekend. 2 cars in the points. 10th place, Yuki Tsunoda in the first AlphaTauri, beating his teammate. So, we had a couple DNFs, only 2. We had Zhou Guanyu in the second Alfa Romeo, and unfortunately, leading the race at the time, Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari has some power issues and is unable to continue. Terrible, terrible luck from Ferrari and from Charles, and for me, because I picked him to win the race. So I was disappointed to see that happen, but not too disappointed because that means Max wins. So, Chase, let's just get into it. Give me your 3 winners for this race.
Okay. So, my first winner is George Russell.
Yeah.
I mean, so Russell started in third, right? Did everything he needed to do to stay there. Got handed second for a little bit, then got handed first by DNFs and people, making mistakes. He literally got handed those positions. Then he kept them for as long as he possibly could. He had, in my opinion, phenomenal defense against Max Verstappen, with the exception that we all know Max had DRS problems. But besides that, he did phenomenally, even with that there. And then ends on the podium. He's the Mercedes rookie right now. I mean, not actually a rookie, but he's, brand new to Mercedes, big boy team. And I think he couldn't have had a better race, and you couldn't have really asked more of him with the understanding of, like, Mercedes cars aren't that good right now. They've improved a ton, but you're pitting a Mercedes against 2 Red Bulls, and you can't really ask him to do more, in my opinion.
No, absolutely, you're right. I was just talking to my dad actually about this race and George, and I think I touched on it last week because George had another very good race, but just with how consistent he's been, like, he's absolutely showing that this is the correct direction for Mercedes. And no matter, like, there wasn't a lot of speculation or a lot of of doubt when George was coming in to the Mercedes team in the first place this year. Like, a lot of people expected him to do well, and he's absolutely showing those people that this was the right move. Those upper echelon, those move makers at Mercedes. You made the right choice. I am your guy for the future, and as long as he keeps putting in performances like this, we're going to see him at Mercedes for a very, very, very long time. As long as Mercedes is on top, they're going to have the best driver on the grid, or they're going to try to have the best driver on the grid. And I think George is absolutely making a case for him being the best driver on the grid. I don't know if he is, but I think he's definitely easily top 5, probably top 3.
Yeah, so for me, George's top 3. I don't think he really comes close to the top 2 right now, which for those wondering, in my opinion would be Max Verstappen 1, Charles Leclerc 2. I don't think he comes close to them. But I mean, I put him in my top 3, and looking at this grid, we got some pretty big names and stuff like that. So I think that's a pretty tall order, you know.
I think it is a tall order, but I also think you have to, like, with that opinion, and I mostly agree with it, but you have to look at the different cars that they're in. Mercedes has been
Yeah.
struggling with porpoising and having a car that is very difficult to drive. We hear seemingly Lewis week in and week out up until this weekend say how difficult the car was to drive. And I don't know, I'm sure George and Lewis's car were set up a little bit differently, but George has been driving that Mercedes that Lewis, a 7-time world champion, has had a tough time with. George has been driving that car very, very well. So
Yeah.
I understand that. I agree with you. I don't put him quite at the level, but I think he's a lot closer than maybe you realize.
Yeah, I could see that. I just think put him in the same car, we still see him consistently third.
Hmm. Okay. Who do you got for number two?
My second winner of this race. Oh, I lost my notes. My second winner of this race is going to be the 7-time world champion, Lewis
Hmm.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great
he
race.
has been having so many problems this season. We've dogged on him extensively.
Yep.
Lots of people love dogging on Hamilton. But this race, oh my goodness. Lap 1 has a crash.
Yeah.
Kind of
Collides.
controversial crash. I think it
Yeah.
could have been, dealt with without a crash. I didn't think that needed to happen. But regardless, it did happen. Punctured a tire, damaged front wing, all these bad things. Drops all the way down to 19th position. And the only person that is behind him on the grid is the other person in the crash. So he's essentially as far back as you can get. Goes from 19th and then over the rest of the race climbs his way back up that mountain of all the other drivers, steals fastest lap multiple times, never actually got it in the end, but he stole it multiple times, and then ended for 5. And he wanted to retire like lap 5. He was like, hey, we should save the engine. Ends it, ends it top 5. You couldn't ask for a better race result given the circumstances of what happened to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, essentially starting the race in last place without actually doing it. And this just goes to show uh Mercedes has figured the car out. It's not
Yeah,
perfect. It's not perfect. It's clearly not the fastest car on the grid yet, but you know, we are in a part of Formula 1 where people are like teams are still trying to figure out how to best set up the cars. I know we think they have so much time to get these cars as perfect as they can, but these cars are constantly evolving from week to week, from track to track. And I think that Mercedes, especially, it has been very evident just how much they've been dealing with some issues, especially the porpoising. I think we talked about last week how
hmm
evident it was how bad the porpoising was on that Mercedes. And so to see a Mercedes car and a driver like Lewis Hamilton have a very really really good weekend like this, like you said, starting from last and hitting top 5. And let's be honest, he got fourth. He got fourth. I mean, uh, anybody who watched the race knows he Lewis the both it seems like both Ferraris had a leak in the coolant system, right?
hmm
So they were being forced to not brake as heavy, being forced to more like let the car slow down naturally. So just take your foot off the gas and not brake, which of course, unfortunately, led to Carlos passing Lewis and getting that fourth place. But essentially, Lewis got fourth this race, just not
Yeah,
on the points, unfortunately. So I absolutely agree with you. This was an absolute win from not only Lewis, but also Mercedes as a whole, because it
yeah,
proves that this car is back on the right track.
yeah, exactly. And like you said, that cooling issue was such a problem that they told George Russell, they were like, "Hey, your car is getting on the hot side," and he's like, "Why? There's no one in front of me." And that when the moment I heard that go down, I was like, oh, so his car's running really hot, and that's not good. All right, and then my third winner is actually one of my losers, but that gray area. Charles Leclerc is my third winner. And I chose Charles as my third winner, even though he didn't win the race, even though he DNF'd. Those two things were out of his hands. Everything that was in his hands was phenomenal by him. He dominated this weekend. First in FP1, first in FP2, first in FP3, gets pole position, then dominates the race. He's so far ahead of Russell that he pits and then gets back on the track and still is ahead of Russell. And then he retires when he's 12 seconds ahead of Russell halfway through the race. I mean, he, in my opinion, absolutely dominated this weekend. And it's so unfortunate to see him. It's so unfortunate to see the DNF because I really didn't think Max had a chance of winning the race with Leclerc in it. And so Max kind of got handed, here's the golden opportunity to win when Leclerc DNF'd. I really thought it was Leclerc's race as I was watching it because it was. He was absolutely dominating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're definitely right. It felt like Charles was definitely the fastest driver on the grid this weekend, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Like, it
yeah.
all comes down to Sunday, and if you could put together a good race. And look, getting first in all the practice sessions is great, but we're talking about practice, Chase. We're talking about practice. You got to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that car is going to finish the race on Sunday, and either Ferrari missed something or just something crazy happened. But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is the race on Sunday, and that is what Ferrari they could not give to Charles, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
that's that gray area where I have him as a winner and a loser. That's that gray area because he did everything possible, but like Ferrari dropped the ball with the car and all these things. And like you said, it does what matters is what happens in the race. Because if you look at the other races, like Miami's a good example, he kind of dominated, not as heavily, but he dominated in the practices and got pole and stuff like this, and then in the race lost it. So it's kind of a running theme right now with
yeah,
Leclerc slash Ferrari to do that, where just complete utter domination and then dropping it when it matters the most. So that's why I also have him as a loser because it's not his fault, but
no, it's not.
it's just a terrible situation, and we're seeing these teams. You can't blame the engineers too much, but also the cars aren't working, so you can.
Yeah, I think you can start to. I think like with, I mean, in my opinion, this Ferrari engine is probably the best engine on the grid, but it's struggling with reliability, and that
Yeah,
is typically what happens with engines that are the best on the grid is they're overpowering themselves,
yeah,
and and issues are arising. So yeah, that's all I'll really say about that.
yeah. So that's my three winners. What's your three winners?
My three winners are pretty similar. Mercedes, touched on it before.
Mm-hmm.
This was what they will be hoping, I think, from this year. I think maybe they might not want to admit it to themselves, but they're trying. They're racing for third. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I wish it wasn't like that. I would love to see a 3-way fight. I think that would be fantastic. And who knows? We might get that, but I think at this point Mercedes is racing for third, and this was a really really good race from them. My second winner is Alpine. They talked a little bit about it on the broadcast, but Alpine I think probably has the best car outside of the top three: Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. I really do. They've been very very consistent scoring points. Right now in the constructors, they are sixth, but I have a feeling as the season continues, they're going to very slowly. And I mean, Alfa Romeo is propped up only by Valtteri Bottas, basically. So if
Mm-hmm.
he has a bad race, and I'm sure he will, everybody does. You'll see Alpine probably jump him there. And McLaren is seemingly only having one driver scoring points every weekend. So I am not sure how they are up in up in fourth, but I have a feeling that fight for fourth, that fourth, fifth, and sixth between those three teams will be very, very interesting. And I think that the Alpine right now has the best car of the three.
Yeah, I feel like I could agree with that. I mean, Alpine is doing pretty great, like you said, and they're doing things quietly. I think,
Yeah,
right?
very,
Like
very quietly.
seventh place, seventh and ninth place here. I feel like is pretty quiet, especially when all of the talk was about Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, Bottas, and then they just kind of sneak in there, like,
Yep.
hey, here's some points, give them, you know.
Yeah, seventh and ninth is not a lot of points, but if you look at who did they really get beat by, and they got beat by Valtteri Bottas, who scores 8 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like that ties them, and then Lando splits them in eighth. He scores
Mm-hmm.
4 points. McLaren only scores 4 points, right? Because Ricardo's down in 12th, Ian's 12th.
Yeah,
So that's right where they want to be. I mean, they would like to look. Valtteri Bottas is a better driver right now than both of Alpine's drivers. I think that is a very fine thing to say. Valtteri Bottas
yeah,
is driving the pants off that car. You know, so I don't expect them to be beating him week in and week out, but I think the only thing they probably would have liked to see better, because they're not going to beat the Mercedes right now, they're not going to beat the Ferraris, and they're certainly not going to beat the Red Bulls.
yeah,
But the only thing they probably would like to see is Fernando Alonso getting past Lando Norris and the McLaren, because I think they could do that. I really do. So I got to give it my second winner to Alpine. My third winner has to be Lewis, like we touched on before. I
mm-hmm.
don't want to talk too much, but I mean, we're starting to see like like the Lewis Hamilton of yesteryear, which literally just means of last year, because he has not looked himself so far this season. And this was a really, really good race from him, just showing how much better he is as a driver, just his racecraft. I mean, he just seems to just glide through the pack. And he is in a better car, but it Lewis Hamilton is a very, very special driver, and this was a great race from him. So he has to be my third winner. All right, Chase, let's talk about the losers, because somebody's got to win, but somebody's got to lose too, Chase. So give me your three losers.
So I already touched on my first loser, Leclerc and his situation.
Yeah.
My second loser is and forgive me for my pronunciation, Guan Yu Zhao, is my second loser.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's simply just because this is his second DNF really early in the race, seeing as
Mm-hmm.
these races go on for, close to 2 hours, really early. And like we talked about last week, he's not doing well compared to his teammate. There's caveats there, but it's the honest truth. He's not doing well compared to his teammates. And when he DNFs like this, he can't try to do well against his teammate. It's out of his hands. And it's got to be hard on him seeing the distance between him and his teammate, understanding that it's his rookie year, and then, getting ready to go at it, throw punches, get into the race, get your hands dirty and win it, and you DNF. And
Mm-hmm.
it, we talk about all the time how sad it's got to be for these drivers. He can't fight back right now, in a sense, and I was hoping to see something special from him this race, because he did pretty all right in FP3, and then did uh, kind of good in qualifying for understanding it's Guan Yu Zhao. He did
Sure.
kind of good, and I was hoping maybe with a lot of the chaos, like Hamilton and Magnussen dropping out of the top 10, pushing him up 2 positions, right? Maybe he can capitalize he got DNF'd and couldn't capitalize. So that's my second loser.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. He starts the race in 15th, which isn't great. You definitely would like to see him above the AlphaTauris. I think that Alfa Romeo car, I think, is probably better than the AlphaTauri car, especially the way Bottas is driving. And I understand, we're being able to see how good of a driver Valtteri is, but you gotta start closing that gap. You really do. You really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then my third loser is, and you didn't see it too much here. Well, arguably. My third loser is just Red Bull's car problems. It's
Mm,
been very prevalent this season with a lot of DNFs and then little things here and there, but we saw it again here. Max didn't DNF, but if he was fighting a car that was better than him, like, for instance, take Russell and replace him with Leclerc and put Verstappen and Leclerc in the same situation where Verstappen's trying to overtake Leclerc and Verstappen's DRS isn't working. Leclerc, because his car is better than a Mercedes and he's on the top of his game right now, right? He just pulls away from Max. If Max's DRS doesn't work, every time Max, tries to get something, he can't do it because faster car.
yeah,
So we saw a very prevalent problem here. It worked out in the end, but my point is put a faster car in front of Max here and he won't pass him like he eventually did pass. Mind you, there were pit stops and stuff that dealt with it, but my point is the DRS could have been a serious problem here, and
yeah,
it was like a kind of big problem, but it could have been way worse. And it's just Red
definitely.
Bull again having reliability issues over and over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely something you don't want to see happening to the car on your defending world champion. And I think as the season goes on, they'll get better and better, but certainly they have had their issues with the cars and breaking down. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that's such an easy fix too. I feel like it's an easy fix. It just takes, sorry, I dropped something. It just takes the Red Bull garage just being more mindful, being more aware of what is going on with the car, just being like, that's it. Like, just analyzing your car just a little bit more than you have been doing to cut down on those issues. I mean, like, yeah, like you said, like, they're Red Bull, and I'll touch on this later, but Red Bull got so lucky this race.
Yeah.
Wow, they got lucky this race.
Yeah.
Holy. I mean, everything really went their way, and I mean, thank goodness for them at least, the DRS did not end up becoming a problem because it very easily could have been.
Yeah. Like I said, it was a bad situation that could have became really bad, but they just, like you said, they got lucky. So
Absolutely.
that's my third and final loser. What about
All
you?
right. Um, it was kind of tough picking losers because I don't know, like, a lot of what happened this weekend felt like it. I don't know, like it was like out of their hands almost.
Yeah,
So
I kind of
obviously
agree.
my first loser was Ferrari. This is obviously, if they want to be fighting for the championship, this was a very, very bad weekend for them. Sainz being able to pull it back and give it fourth was really, really great. I'm super
Hmm.
happy for Carlos having a good showing after spinning out at your home race. You never want to do badly at your home race. So see him give fourth was great. But obviously, with Leclerc wanting to fight for the championship, and let's be honest, like, he was going to win this race if nothing happened to him.
Yeah.
Um, Max was probably going to get second with, Sergio, George, and Max kind of fighting for the rest of those podium places. But Ferrari has to be my first loser. My second loser, I'm looking at Red Bull, and Sergio Perez is once again not impressing me. I found it odd that, and I don't know whether to put this on Sergio, but I put it here just because I wanted to talk about it. I don't know whether I put this on Sergio or George. Being able to pass a seemingly, in my mind, a slower car in George Russell. Sergio just couldn't get it done. Max gets it done later on fresher tires, thank goodness, but Sergio has a tough time getting past George. And I couldn't understand that. I was like, Sergio, you are in a faster car on like the same tires. How are you not being able to get past this guy? And like I
I
said,
will.
I don't know whether to put that on Sergio or George. What do you think?
Um, George, I think it's more of George being a really good defense. He was really
Sure.
top of his game defense here. But I also see what you're saying. It did take him a bit, but I wrote down in my notes that I thought his overtake when he finally did it on Russell was great. The moment
Yeah.
he finally got it on lap 31, it was done for. And you knew that immediately. Like the whole overtake, it was very clear that Perez was just out of there, and there was nothing Russell could do. But I do see what you're saying. We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
Perez has a very hard time attacking. It's it's
Yeah.
something he needs to work on, but he has a phenomenal time defending. So
Yeah. Take the good with the bad, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
My final loser, and I have noticed this a few weekends, but this time it really stuck out to me because I think they both got passed, and um Mick Schumacher like got passed and he dropped out of the points. Um oh, he ended up quite a bit farther out of the points than I thought. Um yeah,
Mick
he ended up
Schumacher
14th.
was yes
But
14th.
he was like in 10th for like most of the race, I think.
Yeah,
Anyway,
for a good bit of it.
yeah, so my final loser is going to be Haas. Now, I don't understand what is going on with this Haas team because they are qualifying really well. They
Really,
qualified Magnussen 8th and Mick Schumacher 10th. That's really good. That's really,
hmm
really, really good. And then they cannot seem to transfer it over to Sunday. They're the Saturday team. They really wish the weekend would just end on Saturday. And I don't know whether that is the car, whether that is the tires, whether that is the strategy, or whether that is the drivers. I don't understand. But something is really working for this car on Saturday and then not working on Sunday. And I think it's just I think it's either race pace or just the tire degradation or strategy differences. I feel like we're constantly seeing at the end like the Haas's are holding on well. Unfortunately for Kevin Magnussen, of course he hits Lewis Hamilton and kind of spins out, so he's pretty much out of the race. But
yeah.
Mick seems to hold on to his position for quite a bit longer, and then at the end just gets passed by a couple people and he drops to 14th. With 14th, I really feel like does not do Mick justice. I thought he had a very, very good race.
Yeah,
And I think that just comes down to strategy. I don't think that this Haas team is applying the appropriate strategy for their car. But I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I agree with you on a lot of it. The main thing is Mick having a great race. I mean, qualifying 10th. I mean, that's so. First of all, that is his first career uh, qualification in the top 10. First F1 career qualification. Uh, in Haas, and Haas has been the laughing stock of the sport for the past couple years, and that's saying something because Williams was also here for the last couple years. You know what I'm saying? So Haas was as far back as you could go, and now to see the Haas cars doing great, I mean, it's a whole different ball game for them this season. And I'm with you. There's so many variables as to why they're great on Saturday but bad in the race. It's like you said, tire degradation. It could be maybe the cars are really good in short bursts because we also see Mick Mick in 10th in FP2, Magnussen in 12th in that, and then Magnussen in 8th in FP3. And these are a little shorter than the races, but so it could be the cars have trouble running this long. Like you said, it could be the drivers. Maybe drivers can't deal with it, but or it could be boiled down to strategy. There's too many variables for us as outside people to really be able to
Yeah,
speak into it.
for
But
sure.
at the end of the day, it needs to be dealt with
Mm-hmm.
because they have such good opportunities here. They have, I mean, 10th place for Schumacher. He keeps that. That's 1 point for him. That's great. I mean, it's only 1 point, but this is a back mid pack team. This is what they fight for. Is the scraps of the points,
Exactly.
and it gets their name out there, and it's positive, and it's high energy. You keep that. Oh, I placed 10th last race. I'm really feeling good. You keep all that, and it rolls. So
Yeah.
whatever the variable is, it needs to be fixed. And to touch on it while we're talking about Haas,
Yeah.
uh, so the crash, racing incident, I kind of agree with both of their faults. Really,
I
uh,
don't
two.
know. I watched it and I don't like necessarily siding with Lewis. It really looked like Magnussen ran into him. That's just what it
Yeah,
looked like to me.
yeah,
I know it I'm fine with it being called a race incident, but when I was watching it, I was like, Magnussen, okay, a little aggressive there, buddy.
yeah. I think I'm happy that it's called a racing incident because I really don't think either one needs to be punished because
No, yeah, yeah.
Lewis kept his line, but then slowly lost it right before they hit. And mind you, different tires, not enough grip, only person starting on mediums. A lot of things to add there. But I'm also with you. And what I was gonna say is Magnussen. Why are you pulling a George or Lando Norris in Miami? You're getting like unnecessarily close to the car for for an opportunity where you don't need to. He could have stayed on the outside. Maybe he doesn't pass Lewis in that corner, and he has to wait another corner, but he was clearly faster than Lewis, right? He
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
better tires for the situation on soft tires, in a pretty good car. I mean, the Haas is a pretty good car, and the Mercedes got a lot better this season. I still think Mercedes, or this race, I still think Mercedes is a better car,
For sure.
but way too over aggressive for first lap. Maybe if it's lap 66, right? That's different. You really need to make the move and make it count. But you have an
Mhm.
entire race to pass Hamilton, who you're kind of proving you're faster. So
Mhm.
I'm with you. I feel like it's more on Magnussen, but I don't think he needed to be penalized. They need to be like, here's 5 seconds. I don't.
Yeah, no.
It's
No.
it's not intentional, and it's not bad. It's not he cut a corner and slammed into Lewis. It's they got close. He got too
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's shift a little focus then and let's
Yep.
talk about the drivers' standings because we have a brand new leader.
Yep.
With Charles Leclerc's DNF in Spain, Max Verstappen takes the lead of the Formula One World Championship drivers standings. We got Max Verstappen now first place with 110 points. Wow. I mean, it feels like just yesterday, Charles had like a 50-point lead.
Yeah, it only took 3 races. The
Yeah,
sprint race the sprint race in Italy kind of jumped Max and Red Bull up. Then the Miami Grand Prix, and now Spain, just
yeah,
enough to kill that really big lead.
yeah. Incredible. So second place, of course, is Charles Leclerc with 104 points. Right behind him, Sergio Perez with I believe that's uh 19, 19 point gap. Is Sergio Perez 85 points behind him with an 11-point gap is George Russell in fourth. Fifth place, Carlos Sainz with 65 points. Sixth place, Lewis Hamilton with 46 points. Seventh place, Lando Norris with 39. There's a pretty good gap there between sixth and
Mm-hmm.
seventh. Eighth place, Valtteri Bottas with 38 points. He has 38 of Alfa Romeo's 39 points, by the way. And I believe Joe scored his first points in the very first race of the season, if
Yes.
I do remember correctly.
Yep.
That is
His
pretty
rookie
incredible.
debut.
What a season Valtteri's having for them. Holy. Ninth place, Esteban Ocon, 30 points. 10th place in the Haas, Kevin Magnussen with 15 points. Although Yuki Tsunoda nipping at his heels with 11. Also, interestingly enough, at 11th, Daniel Ricciardo in 12th. That is not what McLaren wants to see at all. Lando Norris has a 28-point lead on his teammate right now. 28-point lead.
There's a lot of interesting things going on here if you look at standings. I mean, first of all, Sainz is way too far down for Ferrari
Oh,
to
yeah.
be happy with this. I mean, Sainz is 5th place. Sergio is now 3rd. Then there's Russell separating Carlos from Sergio. So he's 5th place, and you've got close to 200 points between the two Red Bulls. You've got 100 points with Leclerc, and then you've got 65 points with Sainz, and that's too big of a gap for me if I'm a Ferrari fan. And then you've got Lewis, who has now crept up really fast into 6th place because he was
Yeah.
not doing well. He was barely part of half of the races, and now all of a sudden, bam, he's here. Big gap between him and Lando's been on the podium this season, so that's not good. And then all of a sudden, Valtteri Bottas of Alfa Romeo is 1 point behind Lando Norris of McLaren. What is that? Why is that? What are you
Yeah.
doing, McLaren?
Yeah. I'm looking at Ricardo's finishes this season. He scored points in only 2 races. Australia, his home race where he finished 6th, scores 8 points. And then Emilia Romagna, where he scores 3 points, but he finishes 18th. I'm really confused
That's
by this.
from the sprint.
From the sprint race. That's
Probably
right.
3 points from the sprint.
Yeah, 3 points from the sprint. That's not good enough for McLaren.
No.
I honestly hope that McLaren is seriously looking at Ricciardo. I hope he feels some pressure. And I like Daniel Ricciardo. I think he's a great guy, but if clearly this McLaren is better than he's driving it, clearly. And I do think that Lando Norris is a better driver than Daniel Ricciardo right now, but like what is this 14th, 18th, 13th, 12th?
I agree with
This
that.
isn't good enough. This isn't good enough.
But also it's not a good car. I mean, in the next race, I can almost guarantee you Bottas passes Norris here in standings. There's no way Norris gets more points than Bottas in this next race, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
you're probably right.
And Ocon is 9 points away from Lando. Ocon has a phenomenal race or just a couple good ones, and he passes Norris. So I don't think the McLaren car is that good. I mean, we saw it do wonders in Italy, but I don't think it's that good. But also, yeah, Ricardo's not doing that good with it. So another interesting gap
Yeah.
I'd like to point out is Esteban Ocon of Alpine, 30 points. You go down to 15th place, Fernando Alonso of Alpine, 4 points.
Yeah.
Ocon is carrying
Yeah,
that
he
team,
really is.
even though Fernando Alonso is getting into the top 10. I mean, 9th place here in this race. But Ocon is carrying that team. And I didn't realize it was that big until I
I
saw
didn't
that.
realize that either. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a huge gap.
Yeah. And it's not a gap that's, in my opinion, acceptable in the sense of like Valtteri's gap to Zhao, kind of acceptable.
Acceptable. Yeah.
Kevin Magnussen's to Mick Schumacher, completely acceptable. Albon to Latifi, why would you expect anything else? You know, and then like Vettel in Lance Stroll's isn't that large because 4 and 2 points. It's
4 and 2.
but it still makes sense. Vettel's still got more. Then you go down to the 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso is getting absolutely gapped by his teammate, who's won a single race. I think Esteban has a
Yeah, yeah,
race win.
yeah.
So I don't know if that's Fernando being bad or Esteban being a lot better than maybe some of us are thinking.
Esteban, he just always seemingly constantly flying under the radar. Like you were talking about with Alpine,
Mm-hmm.
I never pay attention to him, and I don't know why, because
Mm-hmm.
they do. I think they've got a very, very good car. Also, an interesting
Yeah.
gap here: Sonoda in 11th, beating his teammate Pierre by not a lot, but he's beating him. And Pierre had
Yeah.
such a good season last year. You
Almost
know,
double points.
interesting, and keep an eye on that for sure.
If Yuki places higher than Gasly this year, I'm ecstatic. Not because I dislike Gasly. I love Gasly, but like that's really good and promising for Yuki. That is
Yeah,
like, because
definitely.
Pierre is a proven race winner. He was
Hmm.
given a chance at Red Bull. He's been doing phenomenally in some of these races. I mean, everyone talks about how goated Gasly is,
Yeah.
and but currently he's getting beaten by Yuki Tsunoda, and that's pretty good.
I think so too. I think so too. All right, let's shift and talk constructors because is this a change? Was Red
No,
Bull?
I don't
Yeah, I
believe
was gonna
so.
say Red Bull. I think took the lead last weekend.
Yes.
I can't remember. Red Bull is in first, folks, with 195 points. Second place is Ferrari, right behind them with 169 nice points. Third place, Mercedes, 120. And then fourth place, McLaren is a whopping 70 points behind them
Yeah.
at 50. And right behind them, Alfa Romeo in fifth.
I
Um,
mean,
every team has scored
continue.
points
Yeah.
this season. Every team has scored points. And AlphaTauri and Haas are very, very close together. That is a one thing that I took away
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
this updated constructor
AlphaTauri
standings.
seventh place with 16 points. Haas eighth place with 15. That is a 2 point difference, and that is something we could see change next race because Kevin Magnussen has been doing really well this season,
Yep.
and the
Wait, did
AlphaTauri
you
seem
say
to just
did you say AlphaTauri was at 16 or 17 points? I think you said
uh
16. They are at
I might have
17.
said 16. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. Uh,
We all mess up. We all make
yeah.
mistakes.
AlphaTauri's just kind of been trickling into the back of the points here,
Mhm.
but Haas has been getting like good points when they get them, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
then, uh,
Aston Martin down there in ninth, 6 points, single digit points,
yeah,
right next to the Williams. Aston Martin proving that you cannot buy race wins
yeah,
because they have a
even if
lot
you
of
copy
money.
another team, right?
Yeah, just copy another team.
uh, a couple interesting things for me here is the fact that this season could end with Alfa Romeo above McLaren. It and to
Oh yeah,
continue, Alpine above McLaren. Like
absolutely.
McLaren is in such a bad place right now, and the other teams are in such a good place. Like if they're not careful, they're placed in like sixth in constructors, and they're getting beaten by teams who, if you had asked me last year, I would have never said they beat them. In that gap
No,
between Mercedes, they're out of it. They're fighting for fourth now. That's it. That's all they got. You know, they're not fighting for third anymore, which is what we
no.
thought.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you. I think
70 points.
I think that McLaren could absolutely hold on to fourth
They
because,
could.
but they need Daniel Ricciardo to start contributing. He's not contributing right now.
And they need just better results in general. Because yeah,
Yeah,
Ricardo's not contributing, but Norris is eighth year, getting beat by an Alpine, getting beat by an AlphaTauri, getting
yeah,
beat by someone who pitted lap one after a crash and a punctured tire and a damaged front wing.
yeah,
Like the on paper, these aren't good
for
in
sure. I
general.
agree with you. I agree with you. But I mean, clearly Alfa Romeo is a one driver team. Clearly, I think
Definitely, yeah.
they're the definition of one driver team.
But
You
that
know,
one driver, I
is
mean,
beating both the
phenomenal.
McLarens
Yeah, and both the Alpines, and basically best of the rest.
essentially.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll see. It'll be interesting to
yeah,
see how far Alpha can go on essentially just one driver's appetite for points.
yeah. And then another interesting is just Mercedes could be in contention for second or first. I mean, this is something we'll have to keep track of for at least a little bit because there is a large gap, but also Mercedes car got a lot better. They have a
Essentially a 30-point
phenomenal
gap.
driver right now.
No, more than that.
It's
Essentially
more than
50.
that.
It's a 50-point gap. Essentially,
Yeah.
49
But
points.
that's enough to close when we're talking about constructors.
Yeah,
That
true.
can close over the next 19 races.
Oh,
It,
absolutely, it can close.
so that well, hopefully it's a three-way fight. Personally,
Yeah,
put
I
more
mean,
pressure on both the top teams.
most definitely. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, Mercedes having a good race this weekend uh, is a great step towards that three-way fight for the championship we want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Figuring out their car, figuring out the best way to make these new regulations work. So I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for the future with these top three teams. All right, Chase. Let's just talk whatever you want to talk about. What do you got?
All right. I got some interesting things. So, anyone watching free practice might have noticed that there's a couple new faces and a couple old ones.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so for those watching who maybe not have heard, but for those who also heard, there are new free practice rules during the F1 season. You must use at least two novice or reserve drivers as a team. This week, Red Bull used Yuri Vips, I believe I'm saying that right, instead of Sergio Perez in free practice one. Williams had Nick DeVries, I think,
De Vries.
DeVries, stand in for Albon. And then Robert Kubica stood in for Zhao in Alfa Romeo. And
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty interesting. One of them returning, two of them kind of, F2 people.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting rule change. I don't. I have ideas, but I don't know if I see the real purpose of it. What do you think?
I I like the idea, and I
I do
and I
too.
think I can see the purpose of it. It kind of forces your teams to be like proactive with their drivers. I think like not that I think it's necessarily a good thing that we have such a tumultuous like driver market. It seems like we're always we always have kind of a crazy driver market where people running around, but it kind of it allows not only the team with the driver, not only the team giving the driver the chance, but also the other teams to take a look at the driver and go, hey, look at this guy driving the Red Bull. This kid's pretty
Yeah.
good. Let's get some more stuff on him. Let's get some more data on him. So I think I don't necessarily agree too much with um, letting somebody. I like Robert Kubica. I think he's a great guy. He's probably never going to be back in Formula One.
Well,
Um, so I don't know.
to jump in here, I had a couple ideas, and you touched on them. That's what I was kind of thinking. The whole goal of this was to, introduce the drivers into this world that is slightly different. More money, more all that stuff, than what they're used to. But I
Yeah.
think that whole or reserve drivers is just simply so that way teams don't get completely screwed over. Meaning like
How so?
meaning like you can't find the right F2 driver, or maybe that guy's too early, or all just make it so that teams aren't left out to dry. And I know that would never happen, but I that's kind of what I was thinking, because I don't know what else it would be for. It's not like, oh, we got to train our reserve driver just in case a driver crashes out. It's like, well, they get their chance in free practice and stuff like that. So I see the only purpose I can see for reserve drivers is just simply so they're not strong armed into getting a penalty by failing to find two novice drivers that they like.
Okay.
Which I
Yeah.
which I know most of these teams, if not all of them, have Formula 2 people contracted and stuff like that. But
Most definitely.
I see no other purpose. Like you said, Robert Kubica's not going to get back into an F1 car uh, with
More
a
than
full year
likely.
contract.
Yeah, more than likely. No, I think that's interesting, and I think actually I was kind of surprised. I think they were talking about like Latifi because later in the race he he passes somebody and somebody was like mentioning how Latifi might not even make it to like mid season. He might get replaced by I think they were talking about De Vries might replace him at Williams, but I was just thinking like, ugh, this is a very very harsh environment, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like
Sink
it
or
just
swim.
yeah, absolutely. It's sink or swim. Absolutely. What else you got, Chase?
Yeah. The other thing I got uh is a little controversial moment, which is like teams commanding their drivers to give positions. It's I
Mm,
can't think of
yeah.
the way that everyone says it, but that's the way I'm saying it right now. We all know what we're talking about. Perez pull
Team orders.
over,
Team
team
orders. Yeah.
orders. There, that's the word I'm looking for. Perez pull over so Verstappen can take the win. It's always been controversial. It's technically banned, or at least was banned for a good section of time. And then we saw it again here. I mean, to to make this into a bigger conversation. So personally, I think Max was 10 out of 10 passing Perez. No question to ask. I don't think they're crashing. I think it's fine. Definitely let them race there. Uh, so that's my thoughts on this race specifically. But this is kind of a side note. They were talking about how Valtteri Bottas, they were talking about this during the race, is happy. He said he's happy in life. He said he's happy with his team. He's happy with how he's driving, all these things. And the moment I heard that, all I could think is, yeah, he's no longer under the shadow of Lewis Hamilton, and he's no longer getting told to give Hamilton wins and all these things, team orders that has to suck to do. So that's kind of a broad argument, and I brought in Bottas, but what do you think?
I, look, I understand. Like, mm, it's tough because we as spectators want to see a race, right? That's kind of what we tune in, or we pay a ticket to see. But I guess for some of these teams, it is a team sport, and you're trying to maximize your drivers, you're trying to maximize points, and you're trying to just make sure that anything you can control, you do control, so that it works out in your favor the most.
Yeah,
And I think that's really what we're seeing, especially with Red Bull here this weekend. Look, I knew that Sergio was gonna let Max go. You just knew it.
I
Like
wanted them to race. I
I
wanted
wanted
them
him
to
to race
race.
too, but Red Bull knows how special of a driver they have in Max Verstappen, and they want to put him front and center no matter what. And
Here's
Sergio is an unfortunate byproduct of that.
Yeah,
Excuse me, of an unfortunate victim of that.
to jump back in here, you said control the things that they can control.
Yeah.
Technically, they can't control this. Team orders have been banned. They were banned after the 2002 season. So they're technically banned. And I don't know what the FIA is doing because it specifically says team orders that could influence the outcome of the race were banned. So I don't know if why they technically banned it and then don't do anything about it or what the deal is. But technically, this is out of Red Bull's hands. And if the FIA said you get 5 grid place penalties next week because you gave a team order, they could do that. So
I don't
I
think they could though. See, the way this works, right? And if you've ever like I like to listen to like the radio comms and stuff like that when I
mhm.
can. It's they do this in such a way where if the FIA were like, "Hey, we think and let's be honest, they clearly they do it. You know, nobody's contesting that they well, at least right now,
Yeah,
nobody's contesting that they don't do it. Do or don't do it. It's they use language
yeah,
for the
lawyer
drivers.
talk.
They use coded language to let them know, hey, this is what's happening,
Yeah,
and
because
they
they
do it.
say you should give the position, or we
Yeah,
think Max is faster,
yeah,
but like we all know the intent. So that's
yeah,
my problem
exactly.
here.
So that is essentially. the kind of smokescreen that teams are using now, right? They are saying, oh, we didn't tell our driver to do it. You can't penalize us. This is ridiculous. We're gonna fight this. We're gonna, and no team, because that's how it would go, right? If the FIA penalizes Red Bull goes, this is I don't agree with this. We want to contest this. And the FIA just will then, all of the teams will, essentially get to have a discussion about this. And no other team wants to go, oh yeah, Red Bull, you did this, because they know that next week potentially Red Bull could turn around and do the exact same thing to them and
Yeah, no
penalize them. So
team is gonna point fingers.
no team wants to point fingers at each other, for sure.
I think it needs to be concrete. I get that technically they're not breaking the rule, but I think that's so dumb in my opinion, and I think for the sake of the sport and uh not to get too grandiose, but the mentality of the drivers, it should just kind of all be banned, cuz I really think, I mean, Sergio immediately said that's not right. That's not fair. And but he knows deep down he should, and that's my problem. I think they shouldn't have a devil on their shoulder saying, "Hey, you should do this for your teammate to be a better teammate. That would make you a really good teammate." I don't think they should have that devil on their shoulder. I think Max should have had to pass Perez, and he would have. I mean,
He
that won't
probably
always
would.
be the case for every time this happens, but this case, there's no doubt in my mind that Max would have passed him. And I don't know, I just better for the sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's always better for the sport to let people race, but you're just that's it just is not how it is. Like,
Yeah,
it's just ingrained in the sport itself. Like, teams teams making sure they don't their drivers don't run into each other.
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about the next race, because we are running out of time. We're already at 57 minutes.
Oh wow,
Ay, 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 ay. I just get lost talking to you, Chase.
right?
Next race is Monaco. We're back in Monaco, Formula One Grand Prix de Monaco 2022, the most beautiful Grand Prix on the circuit.
That's
If
controversial.
I don't think so. I love Monaco. I would love to visit. What other one is as beautiful, do you think?
I mean, obviously opinionated, but I don't know. It's just like it depends on what you're looking for. Because to me, places like the Austrian or the the Red Bull Ring. I'll just say that because I'm
You like
getting
the Red Bull
confused
Ring?
right now. I mean, it's in the mountains, beautiful views, but you've also got stuff like Abu Dhabi, who's got that has a beautiful hotel going through it, and then like Singapore. I love cities, so it's opinionated. I was
I
just
do
more
I do
poking
like
fun.
street circuits, but I think the best street circuit, at least in terms of aesthetics, maybe not the best track, but I think it has the most beautiful setting.
Yeah,
Let us see. Once I gotta pull it up here. Hold on. Last time out in Monaco. Did we race here last year? Yes, we did. Max Verstappen wins here last year. Let me see if I can find it. The top 3 for this race, if I can actually find
it
it.
was Max Verstappen,
Yep.
Carlos Sainz
Carlos
in second,
Sainz.
third Lando Norris,
Lando
fourth
Norris.
Sergio Perez.
Interesting. And 5th
Yeah.
place, Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin. Boy, he would kill somebody to have a similar performance next weekend, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that
All
is
right.
the race that Lewis Hamilton spent behind Pierre Gasly again, or for the first time.
So, look at some of the stats. I don't know if you have this pulled up, but do you know what year we first raced on this version of the Circuit de Monaco?
Oh, this version?
This
Because
version.
I know we first raced it on it in 55. It was part of the first ever set of tracks ever raced on
So
for Formula One.
Formula1.com is telling me we first raced it in this version in 1950.
Oh,
But the
50?
track was built, sort of, in so
Oh, I was
the,
off. Darn
the
it.
track was built. Obviously, it's just roads in a city in
Yeah.
1215.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Sort
the
of.
first time we raced on it was 1929. And then this
Well, that
version,
wasn't for that was its first Grand Prix, but that wasn't for
yeah, first
Formula
Grand
One.
Prix. Yeah, the
The
first
first year for Formula One was
was in
1950, which they got
1950.
off by 5.
Hasn't been
Darn.
off of it since 1955. So it looks like they took a year where they didn't race on it. But ever since then, incredible. The lap record for this track is 1 minute 12 seconds and 0.909 set by Lewis Hamilton in 2021. So that's pretty incredible. 78 laps
A
and a total
lot.
race distance of 260 kilometers. It should be hopefully a very good race. I like watching Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
Monaco, an infamous Saturday track,
Yep.
essentially, where you qualify. It's where you will most likely finish up because this track is very, very hard to overtake on. It does have a couple sectors, but of course you can't widen anything because it's a street circuit. So
Yeah.
I will be very interested to see. Definitely, if you can, tune in to qualifying on Saturday. So, Chase, let us talk about the last week predictions and then get predictions for Monaco. Is that next week? I don't know.
Yeah. It is the. Oh, why is it not sitting here? Schedule.
The
Uh,
27th, 28th, and 29th.
yeah. So
So
next week.
that is this weekend.
All right. What do you want
Okay.
to? You want me to
So
give predictions, or you want to
no.
do?
We'll go through last week's predictions. So you got a couple right.
Mm-hmm.
You had Max in first place, so that is plus 3 points to you. And then you had Charles in second and Carlos in third, which is a combined total of 0 points. Neither of those gentlemen were on the podium this weekend, but you did have
Mm-hmm.
weekend winner being Red Bull, which of course was true. So that's another plus 3 for you, bringing your total. You have 20 up until this point, plus your 6 this weekend brings your total to 26.
Mm-hmm.
I, unfortunately, could have gotten a very, very close top 3, but unfortunately, the Ferraris both spun out or died. So we had Charles in first, which is 0 points, and Carlos in second, which is also 0 points. But my long shot, my kind
Yeah.
of huck into the air, ends up being correct. George Russell in third place. That's a plus 3 for me. My weekend winner, of course, was going to be Ferrari, which is plus 0. So my total up until this point was 28 plus today's 3 brings my total up to 31. So the gap now is closing, getting
Yep.
closer and closer, Chase. I don't like this. I need another big weekend. The gap now is is it 5 points? Just 5 points between the two, 26 and
Mm-hmm.
31. Big, big, big. All right, Chase, let's get some podium predictions for Monaco this weekend.
All right. Mine are gonna be pretty simple. Max Verstappen, or no, Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc 1. Max Verstappen 2. Carlos Sainz 3. Weekend winner Ferrari.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very safe bet.
If and that bet, to expound on it just a little bit, if Charles doesn't throw himself into a wall or whatever, Monaco curse, right? That doesn't happen here. It's his home Grand Prix. He's always done really well on this track. He's gotten pole on this track, even in years when his car wasn't good. And I just personally see Sergio Perez just being outperformed by Russell here, personally. I don't
Yeah,
think Sergio's in top 4.
I am going to take a similar vein to you, but I'm going to switch up 2 and 3. I think Charles is going to have a very, very good weekend. He's going to want to shake this weekend off, and Monaco is his home race. He's Monegasque.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in the city,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm really liking him for that. I think his teammate is going to back him up. I think his teammate is going to get second, and Max is going to be in third. My weekend winner is going to be Ferrari. So hopefully, mine comes true and yours doesn't. Ha ha ha.
And so I'd like to do a little bit of a fun thing here.
Okay. What's that?
I think we should pick 4 and 5. Give out 0 points for them, but I think we should pick 4 and 5 just to see how close we can get 5 predictions.
Okay. Well, who
And
do you got then?
well,
Who do you
I
got?
already touched on it. I think my 4th place for me is Russell, and 5th place is Perez.
Okay.
Just for fun. These last 2 are just for fun. No points awarded. I just want to see how close we can get with 5 guesses.
I am going to. Ooh. I am going to guess that the Mercedes continues to improve. Lewis gets 4th, and George gets 5th. I'm going to think that
Ooh, interesting.
I am not putting much stock into Sergio Perez, which he may make me regret,
Yeah,
but
we'll
it is
see.
what it is.
It's
That's my
this is just for fun.
just for fun.
So
No puntos awarded.
yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, Chase, this was excellent, an excellent job, I think,
Mm-hmm.
personally. And I will see you next week.
Yep. See ya.